So we're starting to think about how we build a network. And the first thing we're thinking about is how do we connect our devices? We can do that with wires or we could do it wirelessly. And then the next thing we started to think about was how are we going to, arrange the devices? What's the topology going to be? And the most common topology is a star topology, where each device is connected to a central point in a network. And then the next thing we thought about was what kind of a model will we use? What kind of role will the different devices on the network occupy? And we saw that the most common model is a client-server architecture, and I use the term architecture loosely, but the client-server architecture where some machines are clients and some machines are servers, and the clients make requests and the servers fulfill those requests. And then we also saw that there is the peer-to-peer model where sometimes a machine would be a client, sometimes a machine would be a server, and depending upon what was happening, that machine could take on either of those roles. Well, the next thing we're going to think about is how do these different devices communicate? How do they communicate? And that takes us into network protocols. And protocols are nothing more than rules of communication. And anytime you have two or more devices and you want them to talk to each other, you need to have rules of communication. It's just like that with humans too, right? Anytime humans talk to each other, we have rules of communication. For instance, right now I am talking to you, and one of the rules of communication, one of the protocols that humans have when communicating is to face each other. If I was facing this way, you'd be like, what an odd video. That is a really odd video. Why is he not looking at me when he is talking? And it's just weird because I'm violating a communication protocol. One of our rules of communication as humans, one of our protocols is to face each other. Another one is to generally, one person will speak and everybody else listens. And then sometimes we get that overlapping and we have collisions where two people start talking at the same time. And then humans even have a way to negotiate those collisions, right? Usually one person will shut up. But that's how communication occurs. So we have rules of communication. We have protocols for communication as humans. Likewise, anytime you need to get two devices to communicate with each other, they need to have protocols or rules of communication. And so there's a variety of rules of communications for computers that have already been defined and established, and those rules of communication, those protocols, say how does communication occur between the different devices, and we see those phrases all the time. So right here in my web browser, you see HTTP, and that is actually the protocol for communicating on the internet. And HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Sorry, it's the protocol for communicating on the web, which is on the internet. So HTTP, that P stands for protocol, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. There's another protocol that's used for the internet, which is TCP/IP, right? So that's another protocol which is used on the internet. And the P's, once again, stand for protocol, Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. That's TCP/IP. And you'll sometimes hear about IP addresses, and an IP address is an Internet Protocol address, and that's the address of any device that is on the internet. And we'll learn more about IP addresses at some point. Maybe I'll show you at the end of this video IP addresses. So network protocols, just rules of communication, and you have communication protocols for networks, how they communicate between each other. And then here's a list of some network protocols, and you can see HTTP, HTTPS, FTP is in here, File Transfer Protocol. We have SMTP, which is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. We have the Bluetooth protocol, right? We have TCP/IP, right? So these are rules of communication for how computers communicate. And somebody's built these different standards, right, by which, we'll use this in this arena and we'll use this for this situation. They built these different rules of communication. But it all comes back to anytime we have two devices and we want them to communicate, we need to have rules of communication. And those rules of communications are called protocols. It's a protocol. We have protocols for communication as humans. And so that's what you're getting in this video. You are learning the term network protocols, and you now know that network protocols are rules of communication. And when you see things like HTTP, you will now understand, oh, that is the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and that's how computers communicate on the web. And there are other protocols out there, and you're aware of them now also, like TCP/IP and FTP for transferring files, and SMTP for simple mail transfer protocol for mail, for email. So those are rules of communication. Now, last thing I'm going to show you is an IP address. Let's say I wanted to go to my mom's website, right? I can type in clouds.com, and that is going to take me to my mom's website, and there it is. Well, I could also go to Control-C, go down here. So I copied the website, Control-C, go down here to start, type in CMD, the command prompt. Oops. Nope, that's not what I want. I want CMD, the command prompt. And I could type in ping and then McLeods.com. And it gives me an IP address. There's the IP address, 72.29.31.4. And in fact, if I went to 72.29.31.4, right? Voila, it brings me back to my mom's website. And so this is an IP address, an internet protocol address. Everything on the internet has an address, just like pretty much every house in America, in the world. If you want to send mail to it, it has an address. And so the IP address is the location, right, of anything on the internet. And IP stands for Internet Protocol. So there's what an IP address is, and you've learned about network protocols, and you've learned that protocols are rules of communication. Rules of communication. That's what you learned.